should just turn the show on. What's happening, Awesemo baseball fans? Back in your baseball life. If you haven't read my article or watched the show from earlier, this will all be new content. But my name's Terry McBride. We're going to break down the baseball slate. Fortunately, I'm here with my pal Gundacker, and he's going to be doing the analysis of this one. So hopefully we'll get into some different looks than you heard this morning, and we're just going to pick this thing apart. You know, I've gotten a chance to dig into it a little bit more through writing my article, so we've got a lot to say about what I think is an interesting 4-gamer on FanDuel, kind of a limited, frustrating 3-gamer on DK. But Gun, before we start all that, how you doing, pal?
You're doing good, man. A little, I guess it feels like an off day, even though we do have a slate, and then we just kind of recharge and ready for the chaos that is Friday night. But yeah, I'm excited to you're gonna have to get a little different tonight just to stand out from the field. So I'm interested to pick your brain on how we're going to do that, because there are certainly some names that exist at pitcher tonight. Man, navigating these streets are going to be fun.
Yeah, it sure is. And that's kind of what's interesting to me on the 4-game FanDuel slate. Out of the 8 available pitchers, the 4 pitchers or 3 of the pitchers, the premium guys, are in games where their very good teams are all playing one another. You've got the Yanks playing the White Sox with interesting pitchers, and you've got the Phillies playing the Dodgers with interesting pitchers. And then you've got all kind of low end to crappy pitchers in the games with kind of crappy low end teams. So it's really going to break down interestingly. I have really no idea which direction this is going to go, but it's going to be fun trying to find some of those spots for offsetting some ownership. I think we do have a few interesting ones to dive into, so we'll get into that. We are brought to you today by PrizePicks, you guys. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in the show. Make sure that you're hitting the like and the subscribe down there for us. Really helps us out. It goes a long way and helps you guys find out when we're going live. We've got content all over the place, 24 hours a day these days. It's just outrageous how much is going on behind the scenes. So make sure you're subscribed so you get those notifications. Free content up at the site. There's always something for free, a little teaser up on the site. Today we've got premium tools and data, which would be the NBA player projections, which is key for making NBA lineups, MLB player rankings, PGA player rankings, and NHL player rankings. Pretty solid offerings. If you're at the site, pop over there and check out some of the free content. Gun, let's get into breaking this thing down. We can start off with, let's start with the game that's only on the FanDuel slate. It's the 6:35 game. That's something we should call out for people out there too. If you're playing both sites, FanDuel starts at 6:35, includes the Reds versus Pirates game. DK starts at 8:05 and is a 3-game slate. So pretty different looks from site to site. What are you seeing in this Reds versus Pirates game with Connor Overton going for the Reds and JT Brubaker going for the Pirates?
Yeah. So this is one of those extremely wide range outcome spots for me, and I think I'm leaning more on these offenses than the pitchers. Overton has back-to-back starts of 5.1 innings, so we can kind of expect him to be relatively stretched out to go deep enough to where we can plan and account for a couple of at-bats from our hitters against him. And one of the things that this Pirates lineup does is it puts all but Brian Hayes in the left batter's box. So we're going to really, really focus on some guys maybe having a positive platoon advantage. At the end of the day, it's still the Reds, it's still the Pirates, but we have seen heck, we saw the Reds drop 14 the other day. There's still a world where bad hitting can beat mediocre or bad pitching. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards the offensive side here, but no pitcher is off limits if you think he can throw deep enough and maybe steal a win. So if you wanted to get into a couple of back-end shares of either pitcher, I probably wouldn't talk you off that ledge, but it's not somewhere I'm at right now. I haven't really seen a lot of redeeming qualities in Overton in terms of strikeout. He has a 5.9% swinging strikeout rate, or a swinging strike rate so far. Not great, but the Sierra and the XFIP is good. And, you know, the Miles Michaelises, the Merrill Kellys that can just pitch, steal some innings, 5-6 innings, get a dub and hit the shower. They have a place. And then these smaller slates, they have a higher chance to get you there. So maybe I'll talk myself into it later, but right now I was kind of staying away from them and just leaning on the offenses.
Yeah, and to me, this one's definitely more about the offenses. Two low-rent teams who have not performed all that spectacularly. I do think Brubaker is at least a little bit interesting, given his strikeout acumen. I think against an offense that's not overly threatening, you can probably get away with some shares of him. He's 16.4% owned, more to the point, he's only 7,200. I think out of the four lower-end pitchers, he's the best talent, the most proven of them. So I think you can get away with some shares against the Reds. I think you probably, like you were saying, can get away with some shares of Overton, despite the ridiculously low swinging strike total, the low strikeout rate. To your point, it might really be a slate that just kind of breaks down along the lines of, let's say that, Dylan Cease goes out, doesn't get lit up by the Yanks, but just has a bit of a clunker, gives up 3-4 runs. By the same token, Wheeler comes out in the Dodgers game and the same thing happens. Now these guys aren't posting those giant scores that they need to succeed at their prices. They're just pitching more back toward the pack, toward the field. That's what's going to enable a guy like a Tyler Anderson or potentially like a JT Brubaker or one of these even lower end guys to at least succeed, because for the price, you're buying your way close enough to those pitching projections, to those pitching marks from other guys, and you're affording, one, maybe two extreme bat upgrades. So I do think, like you said, there's a place for basically every pitcher on this slate, as uncomfortable as it might be. Taking a look at the bats on both sides, you mentioned liking the Pirates, and I agree, the heavily left-handed version of the Pirates that they're going to roll out. I think Brian Reynolds is very interesting in conjunction with Brian Hayes in the middle of the lineup there. Are there any other key hitters in there that you're really zeroing in on in the Pirates lineup? And then who are you looking at from the Red side of things, since you prefer the bats?
For the Red side, if I'm ever going to get to Reds stacks in the year 2022, it's going to have to include Tommy Pham. I think he's their best player by a mile, and we're seeing Colin Moran lately just go on a power surge. So those are two guys I would probably prioritize. Brandon Drury is swinging a really nice bat right now as well. Those would be my priority clicks, and then Friedel being in a leadoff spot, Mike Moustakas, a lefty to break things up. I wouldn't mind that, but I think if I had to make a hierarchy or rank them, it's going to be Pham one, probably Moran, and then Drury. And Drury and Moran are probably interchangeable, and Drury might mathematically be a better place since he's batting second versus sixth.
Yeah, and I do like the hot bats of both of those guys. I think Moran is an underrated hitter in general. He's put up very good contact marks in the past and been a guy that we've kind of expected power from, sitting at a 215 ISO, 4 home runs so far. Interestingly, creating runs still 3% below average, because he's got a 289 on base and a 215 batting average on the front end of his triple slash. But I think as we're hunting for power and for some run creation here, some home runs, I think he's an interesting bat. I agree, Pham, most interesting player on that team with his power, his hit tool. Moose at 17.7% ownership. How interesting is that to you for 2,800 on a slate like this? Does that make him too popular, or is that okay to own? Because we've got guys pushing 30-40% as hitters, but they're kind of more premium bats than Moose.
Yeah, it does bring a little sticker shock, but at the same time, it's a 4-game slate on FanDuel. So guys are going to accidentally be 1-4 owned just because of how condensed it is. I think if we're looking at the weakness of Brubaker in the last couple of years, it's been power, and he's had over 2 home run per 9 against lefties last year. So it makes a lot of sense to grab Moustakas, and he's right in the thick of things in that cleanup spot. So I think 17%, I'll live with it, and just, stay true to the stack and not try to zig too much because of how short the slate is.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And you're zeroing in on the premium bats around him. And if you're building with, if you just put him with Drury and Moran, let's say they're both owned in the 6% range, you've already offset that ownership. So I'm not really worried about that. I think you can definitely get away with it. And just looking at our top stacks tool for the FanDuel slate, Cincinnati, number 2 on the board by top stack percentage at 14.6, and they're positively leveraged. They're owned at an 8% share, positively leveraged with a 6.5% leverage score, which actually brings something I wanted to call out for everybody. If you didn't see my notes yesterday during the show in chat, we've changed the way that we're calculating leverage on the site now. So we're using 75% of the top stack total, and then 25% of the top value total is the number from which the ownership is drawn. So it's just giving it a bit of a different look. And what the point of that is it kind of reflects something that I was trying to get across on a show the other day with Neil. And I think I did a poor job of explaining it, where I said, yeah, this pitcher's negatively leveraged technically, but I like him. I think he's under-owned for the price that he's at. And I was trying to explain how that value worked in where it wasn't exactly reflected in our leverage score is related to the value potential. And that's now been cleaned up totally coincidentally. The guys didn't do it because I said something. It just happenstance that it came out that way, but I really like what we've done with the leverage over there. So that makes Cincinnati super interesting on this slate. To get back to the point, 6.5 leverage, the highest leverage score on the board for the second ranked team. We don't see that a lot. So I think it's just a situation where people aren't used to rostering this lousy Reds team, and we can definitely get away with a lot there. Talk to me about just some of the individual bats outside of Brian Hayes, Brian Reynolds. Is there anybody interesting to you on that Pirates lineup, or is it just kind of take what you get? Because they are drawing some ownership.
Yeah, I mean, if Overton's gonna 5% swinging strike rate, he's gonna let you put the ball in play. There's a couple bats I'll take some shots on. I think the most, maybe most warm and fuzzy name, maybe Vogelback here, firing back at Moose in the cleanup spot. If you're gonna let him to put the barrel of the bat on the ball, I kind of like his chances, and he definitely could get a speedy Ben Gamble home, former Yankee great, by the way. Brian Reynolds touch home plate, so I'd probably say Vogelback's my favorite. Got it to maybe challenge that high contact rate. And then this Sawinski fella, Sawinski's auto parts. I had to do some more digging on him, but a couple of slates in the last week, he sent one over the wall and accidentally sent me higher in the standings. He is batting 300 so far against righties, and he's got 2 homers overall. So I do think there's a little bit of sneaky pop, and
so you're saying he hits home runs for the American working man because that's what he cares about. I got you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Did we just become best friends? See, in my head, I was like, I might be stretching it, Terry. I didn't know where your game was.
No. That one's
where's
my wheelhouse, man. That is yeah.
Shout out to Rinpock. I saw the tweet. He said, "Well, all white dudes, no movie quotes." We connected. Let's go.
I speak in movie quotes. I mean, movie quotes and Simpsons quotes are basically my entire lexicon. So that's an interesting call. I hadn't noticed Sawinski down there all that much, but I'm going to pay attention to him now. I think that could be super interesting. 6% owned in the middle of that lineup, so that's a good call. Any love for like a Josh Van Meter? I know we're spending time on this game, but we've only got 4, so we've got some time to talk.
Those guys, so like the Sasugos, Van Meters, Perez, Castros, man, they don't hit for average, they don't hit for power, nothing like that. So they're just kind of, you're hoping some bad hitting beats some bad pitching, and that's very possible in this game. And this Reds bullpen certainly has been below league average in just about every metric possible. So hey man, bad things happen to good people. I wouldn't talk you off of it, but none of those guys stick out, especially for making front end decisions.
Yeah, and we could see both of these teams into their bullpens early, and we could see this game just go a little bit nuclear against these bullpens. So interesting one there. All right, let's move on to the games that are on both slates. Let me see if there's any business to clean up as we do that here at the 15-minute mark. We're talking now MLB, so why don't you check out the Awesemo Plus MLB package? Makes some sense, right? Get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass. This includes full access to all the premium tools and content on Awesemo.com. That means player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, top pitchers, all these things we refer to while we're talking about these shows, and all the ways that you can find out the best possible combinations for your lineups. If you're only looking to play MLB DFS, you can sign up for the MLB only package as low as $18.95 a week. If you're looking to sign up for everything, if you're interested in golf, if you're interested in NASCAR or whatever else is going on these days, look for the platinum plans. They're available on the weekly. They're available on the monthly level. That's our best bang for your buck. That includes everything on the site, projections, ownership, all of that, all the tools and content for every sport that we cover. And we cover basically every sport out there. So check it out. Stop guessing. Start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Let's move on to the first game on deck for both sites. That's the Royals against the Rangers. Royals are rolling out rookie John Heasley. Had a cup of coffee last season, pitching pretty well at AAA so far this year. Rangers countering him with Taylor Hearn, who is decidedly mediocre, I think. Decent strikeout rate, 3.57 xFIP, but putting too many guys on base for Hearn. So what are you thinking of the two pitchers in this game? Hearn's drawing a ton of ownership on the DK slate for 6,400. Is he your kind of go-to value pitcher, or do you think there's any value in Heasley? What are you doing with these guys?
So Heasley, so far this season in the minors, has not been great. 26.1 innings pitched with a 4.4 ERA, but a 0.95 whip. So maybe there's some unluckiness. I don't have
it should be a decent, it's a decent 3-something xFIP, and a 29% strikeout rate was what stood out to me.
Yeah, I'll take, that strikeout rate definitely sounds good. So
Yeah.
On a slate with such condensed pitching, sure. Why not grab some shares of that? And maybe, the field having absolutely no idea who this guy is, they stay away from him. This is much like the Pirates and the Reds, where I think it's two pitchers that can get got, but it's two offenses that can disappear at the same time. I do think the Rangers offense kind of sticks out to me a little bit. I like this version of the lineup, the Miller, the Seager at the top with a lot of power there. So I'll probably be more inclined to grab some Rangers bats, but I think this is both sides of the fence makes sense. With Taylor Hearn, though, I'm not as enthralled to lean on him, I guess, as much as the field is. I understand it. And the slate being this short, I wouldn't talk anyone down from that ledge, but I do think it's more of a lack of respect for the Royals offense that it is liking to play Taylor Hearn. Whit Merrifield earned himself back into that leadoff spot. Salvy's still up there. Hunter Dozier, Bobby Witt. I mean, these are all names I respect. And this is generally a team I actually prefer against lefties. So if Hearn's going to be, I don't want to say over-owned, but if he's going to be a top 2, top 3 owned guy, that might sell me a little bit more on this Royals offense here. So I think generally I'll be more inclined to have more offense than pitchers. But if you're mass entering a 4-game or a 3-game slate, it's going to be nearly impossible not to grab some shares of these two. And on a slate like this, if you get 10 fantasy points out of a Heasley or a Hearn, it might be enough to get you to the promised land.
Yeah, that's it. I just think there's so few options, particularly where you're combining two pitchers. So it's definitely tough. I agree with you. The Royals are interesting. The thing about it, though, for a pitcher drawing 42% ownership on DK, you're still getting 36% Salvy. You're getting 26% Bobby Witt, 20% Hunter Dozier. It's not like they're super low owned. So I do agree they're a good target, but they're kind of cheap. So they're a good value stack. I think a lot of people are going to be getting there. By the same token, the top end of the Rangers lineup, they've got Jonah Heim snuck into the 2-hole. So now he's kind of changing the equation there. But you've still got Miller at 40% and Corey Seager at 34.5. It looks like no Marcus Semien in the lineup. I don't know if you mentioned that or not. But I think that's
a good thing.
Say again.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. With the way he's come out of the gate this season, my God, what a ridiculous turnaround. It's interesting too, because he struggled the first month of last year and then kind of came on like wildfire. So we'll see if he does it again. But yeah, they're not getting their money's worth out of Marcus Semien yet. So maybe the Rangers with a little bit of ownership. We'll see what the update looks like now that Heim's hitting second. I assume he's going to go from the 7.2 where we had him to a lot higher than that. And then you get guys like Adolis Garcia, 12%, Cole Calhoun, 15%. That back end is a little bit interesting to me, like that back middle, like the 4, 5, 6. Even Nate Lowe, Eli White, you can sneak in there, maybe squeeze a little bit of value out of. They're all cheap. They're easy to put together. It's just the extreme ownership on the key hitters at the top that I do like with Corey Seager and Brad Miller. I really like the contact metrics on Brad Miller, particularly lefty against a weak righty here. But I think I am going to talk myself into some Heasley shares, even on FanDuel at 6,400. I'll be interested to see. Heasley wasn't on the FanDuel slate to start the day, so he was added to the player pool. So I'll be interested to see where his ownership comes in. He's going to be appearing in our tools around the next update, and he'll be dropped into the DraftKings tools on the next update too. There's a bit of a naming issue. He's Jonathan some places, John other places. So we'll see where he lands. Where do you think he's going to come down? If you had to guess, like, what do you think he's going to do to what the board looks like for the top pitchers on DK if you have it in front of you? You don't have it in front of you.
No, I have it in front of me, but that's an incredible question. I think it. I don't know. I guess it would probably bring Hearn from like 19% to 16% top. Like he's gonna grab at least maybe 5 to 6%. I don't know what the metric the tool is based off of to calculate that.
Yeah, and neither do I. I don't have the exact formula or anything like that. But just thinking in terms of how everybody else looks, it's a really thin. Outside of Dylan Cease sitting at the top spot with a pushing 60% top 2 probability, it's a really thin board where everybody's basically in the 30s. So it kind of looks all the same. If he sneaks in there with a somewhat equivalent probability of being a top 2, which I would have to imagine he's going to be, 20 something, 18 something. Like that's not all that far off from some of those numbers, and it'll bring those numbers down a bit. And his ownership is way, way lower than a lot of those other guys. I think he becomes super interesting there. So very curious to see how he comes through our tools and our later updates.
I say a little strategy question. I do want to get your thoughts, since we've never really had a chance to cover the short slate together yet. It's on DraftKings with just 3 games. What is your stance on hitters against pitchers on a short slate? I tend to allow up to 2 on a 3 game or less. And when you were mentioning ownership of Hearn and Salvi, I was wondering like how much of it overlaps. Are you the type to unlock hitters against your pitcher on the short slate, or do you don't do it?
On DK, I feel like I would have to do it more just by virtue of the fact that you have to play 2 pitchers. And I think you are gaining some ground on the field. With that particular matchup, there probably are a lot of people who are just rolling Salvi against Taylor Hearn shares there and not really sweating it. So that might not be the exact spot where I would do it, but I wouldn't have that much of an issue on it with it where I need 2 pitchers. Even on a 3-game slate on FanDuel, I don't tend to do it just because I don't think you have to go that far, because you're only rostering 1 pitcher. And I think there are spots to get away and get different. You can weave enough. I will say that I will maybe consider getting to more one-off share, like, more like maybe 3-3-1-1 type constructions on FanDuel, or, 3-2-2s, stuff like that. A little bit more around the edges with some of the alternate constructions for me, because you've just got a lower probability of 2 teams completely going nuclear, where you might just need to catch the best guy from a 5-run performance. So that's kind of how I handle it. What do you do? Do you let more guys in around the edges on DK as far as the hitter versus pitcher?
Yeah, so if it's if pitching's a little bit more clear cut, like if we have a couple aces and a couple bums, maybe I'll allow up to 1 usually if it's a 3-game or less. But this is something I do like every night in the late night turbos. Sometimes I'll unlock 2 guys against my hitter, and it's not to say a minimum 2, but I'll allow up to 2 for a little bit of diversity versus maybe guys that aren't doing that. I always like cringe on a main slate when I see a guy at first place early on. He's got like 3 hitters against his pitcher on a 10-game slate. Like I would never do that.
I don't know who those guys are.
To get a little different early on, or in these smaller slates, that is something I do. And I'm thinking is like, we're not going to have warm and fuzzies on dang near any pitcher on this slate. I might have to keep it up to 2 today.
Yeah. And now taking that a step further, do you then go in, if you're crunching lineups, do you try and specify which pitchers you would target with that? Like, you don't maybe necessarily want to do it with a highly owned Aaron Judge against Dylan Cease, but maybe you do want to do it with a Whit Merrifield against Taylor Hearn here. So do you use Fantasy Cruncher stack tools, specify like a 1 or 2-man stack, and then say these hitters from these teams? You get that granular with like which hitters you'd like to allow against the pitchers, or you just kind of let it fly more?
No, I'm a little bit more. Yeah, I'm a little bit more laid back with the usage of the thumbs up button and and let the projections and the randomness get me there. But hey, yeah, that's a thought process right there. And the other part is like, the Royals, for instance, and the Rangers, like the bullpens are bad enough, and if these guys, like Heasley has gone 4, 6, and 4 innings his last couple of minor league starts, you still get almost half a game against the bullpen. So it's not necessarily needing the starter to give up a homer there, but it doesn't necessarily come off the top when you do it. Makes sense. Anything else to call out for this game? Any particular hitters from the Rangers side that you want to call out outside of the couple guys up at the top? Yeah, I mean, it's just banking on or betting on some value and some power. I was looking at Heasley's minor league numbers, short sample size here, but he's a big ground ball pitcher to both sides of the plate, 1.3 ground out to air out ratio to lefties with a 0.6 whip. So he's looking pretty tough to get by. My favorite Rangers would be the lefties, the Brad Millers, the Corey Seagers, guys like that. And then, guys transferring from the minors to the majors. It's not always 1-to-1, and sometimes there's a bumpy start. So I'm just banking on talent more than anything else. And it would be the 1 through 4 is probably my favorite lane to get to of the Rangers, but that's strictly a talent, not a matchup thing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Our pal Jordan Klein popped into the chat to say that I'm dressed as a GTA NPC today. I do have a Yankee shirt on. You just can't see the logo behind my old pop filtered over here. But moving on, I thought that was a funny line from Jordan, so I thought it was worth calling out. Let's see, we're in a weird spot to transition, so we'll just go over to the other game. We'll start talking about the Yanks. I'll throw the promo for PrizePicks into the middle of our conversation there. Why don't we start out talking about the pitcher that people probably know a lot less about, Luis Gil for our Yankees. My dog is going nuts below this table. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Luis Gil for our Yankees, 8,100 on the FanDuel slate, owned 3.9% of the time on a 4-game slate. Kind of interesting. 7,200 on DK, owned 28% of the time. I think that's kind of interesting. Kid had a 29.5% strikeout rate over 29 and a third last year. Now tell me about how he walked the world, how he had a bad XFIP and all those other things that were problematic for him.
Yeah, he was one of the luckiest pitchers in the league. And, watching him every start, it was fun because the crowd got behind him when he would get those strikeouts and you felt great. But if we're being honest, there were some luck-based results. The 4.5 Sierra, the almost 4 expected ERA, the 1.3 whip, all that is not what you want. And so far in the minors, man, he hasn't been that rock steady. A 9.5 ERA with 3 losses, because that matters. But the strikeouts are still there. 25 Ks in 17 innings. On top of a 1.76 whip. So, I understand why the ownership's a little low. I'm kind of impressed that the field is that down, or that's, I won't say smart, but I thought that he would generate a little bit more buzz here. But it's not been a fun ride for him. The thing with him, targeting against him is a little easier said than done, because he is such a big strikeout guy. It's the traffic that's a problem, and Aaron Boone has probably the best bullpen in baseball to go to if he needs to quick hook him after 2 or 3 innings. So we're walking a tightrope here, but I'm not that enthralled with playing him. But if he's going to be low owned with a chance at a 30% K rate, why not take a couple stabs?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to throw some darts with him on the FanDuel slate at that ownership. At 28% owned on DK for 7,200, I think you can get away from it safely enough. Like, not entirely, maybe take a couple stabs, but you're probably putting more weight into some of those other guys. 8,100 for that low ownership on FanDuel. I think I can grab some shares of anybody who's going to strike out 30% of hitters. And the 30% is somewhat sustained. Like you said, though, it's just the walks, 14.5% walk rate at AAA so far this year. That matches what he's done through his career. He's always been a double digits walk guy. He's kind of like the bad old version of Robbie Ray, except from the right side, right? That's what these walk and strikeout numbers look like to me. Nowhere near the talent, I don't think, has never really shown that level of capability on the upside of Robbie Ray. But I will point out a 4.38 xFIP to that 9.53 ERA so far this season in AAA. So under the covers, maybe a little bit better and getting dinged a little bit by that. But way too many free passes, way too much traffic against a White Sox team that is currently sitting best in baseball at not striking out against righties at 18.1%. So that's another ding against him. I will say the White Sox, for all their talent, 22% below average creating runs against righties so far this season, 26 in baseball with a 113 WRC ISO, and 22nd with a 2.01 home run rate so far against righties. Maybe there's a little bit there for him, but you're really threading a fine needle on that one. Does that lead you into White Sox stacks on the other side?
Yes. So just focusing straight up on what Gil's going to struggle with. So first of all, in the last 3 starts for Luis Gil, 4 innings, 3 walks, 2.2 innings, 3 walks, 1.2 innings, 5 walks. Walks, that's again, we're talking minor league bats here. Walks would be a problem. And on top of that, if you walk Tim Anderson or Luis Robert or even AJ Pollock, like, walks can turn into doubles real fast. They'll challenge you. So it does create a big inning situation here. And then, if that does happen, maybe Booney goes to a less leveraged arm, because I think they're playing something like 22 games in 21 days, something like that. Yep. And yesterday they did have to use Chapman, Clay Holmes, Michael King. So maybe there's a chance that if things got out of control, they got a little bit more beatable, more hittable guys like Wandy Peralta coming out. And if that happened, if a lefty came out, then yeah, that would just juice up my interest in this White Sox stack even more. So there's a great path to success here for the White Sox if they can act quick. If Gil fights and they scraps, in a one-run game for a couple innings, then I think it's a little bit more of a slugfest between their bullpen versus the White Sox bullpen. But with Dylan Cease on the bump, you really can't expect more than a couple of runs on average. So yeah, I think the White Sox stack will make a lot of sense if Gil transitions as badly back into the majors as he's been so far in the minors.
And it's interesting you mentioned that actually and then I'll get into the promo read real quick and then we'll talk about some individual bats on the White Sox. But would you be looking to specifically back up shares of Cease with White Sox bats since you think so highly of them? Is that something you try and do where, hey, I'm going to the pitcher from this game pretty heavily anyway, let me see how much I can get his bats behind him and, really just kind of back up that win with offense?
I get that question a lot for like FanDuel players. They try to correlate the win to like the pitcher, which like it makes sense, but it's at the same time, I think it's just going to happen organically because I think Cease will be one of the highest owned pitchers in my player pool, and the same with the White Sox. So I think that makes sense. If it maybe something I would do a little bit more if I thought I was grabbing like a big underdog, but I think on this slate it's just going to happen organically.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, all the combinations will end up coming up at a certain point on this slate, so that makes sense. Let's jump into a little quick talk about PrizePicks, guys. Daily prop-based contests. Let me clean that up for those guys. They're paying us good money. Daily prop-based contests. You guys have heard us talk about this a lot. If you use the promo code Awesemo over on their site, you get a $100 match bonus on your first deposit. Boy, I cannot read today. There's no sharks. There's no optimizers. There's no mass entries over there. You can put a 5-player lineup in. If you hit all 5 of your picks, you win 10 times your entry fee. Period. Hands down, money. We have free projections on the site. We have all sorts of tools and content on our site for you to help make the best possible picks you can. You can use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. So if you've got to read on an NHL playoff game, an NBA playoff game, and a couple picks from MLB, throw them all into the same card. Make money. Hit those 10Xs. That's a pretty quick, easy way to clean up. You get one. We have also got a killer promo running with them. You get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, that plan that I was talking about before that includes everything at the site. Get a month of it for free. All you have to do is sign up using our link that's down there in the description. That's the important part. Make sure you use the link. Make sure you're following all the different steps. Make a deposit. Play your first contest. You'll get an email with a promo code 24 to 48 hours later so you can redeem your free month. So guys, seriously, get over and check it out. We have people sending us screenshots constantly. We have winners constantly. We're putting up the win rates for all these picks. It makes it really easy to figure out which picks are gonna take home these 10x multipliers. It's a great site. I encourage everybody to check it out. Download them in the App Store, on Google Play, or play on PrizePicks.com. Get over there and check them out today, guys. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some of the specific White Sox hitters. You mentioned Timmy Anderson up at the top. I'm a big fan of his. Luis Robert in the middle of that lineup. John Moncada hitting second is another guy, good hit tool, good power, can steal a base here and there. Has limited sample size so far this season, but we've seen a lot from him over time. Jose Abreu, Yasmani Grandal. I'm a big fan of all these hitters. I think Gavin Sheets is sneaky at pretty low ownership, hiding in the 6 hole there. AJ Pollock. So who do you like best out of the guys that are not Timmy Anderson and Luis Robert?
Hey, if you believe in hot streaks, Gavin Sheets is he's been putting the ball over the wall, and he's only 2,600 on FanDuel. It's going to be hard to get away from that. And then I'll speak of 2,600 on FanDuel. Yes, Monty Grandal is intriguing. I do kind of prefer his swing against lefties, but hey, like I said, if he catches a Wandy Peralta, even Chapman's a little bit more of a bleed red guy these days in my mind. Even him, but I probably Gavin Sheets right there in the middle. He might catch some backdoor RBI, especially if a guy like Robert gets on. And he ends up in scoring position. I think there's a chance the baton gets to Sheets in an RBI spot.
Yeah, I think it's a sneaky little home run, RBI run creation type of spot. And, you're talking about a guy also hitting behind Grandal who walks at 15%, strikes out 18.9% this year. He was over a 20% walk rate last year. So he's on base a lot. He's struggling so far this season, 169, 292, but it's going to come around. So I think Yasmani Grandal, I think that gives Sheets a nice opportunity here. He's owned 8.8% on DK at 3,600 and only 3% on FanDuel for 2,600. First guy in single digits as you go down that lineup on either site ownership wise. So just kind of sneaking past people in this matchup. I think that's a really interesting spot. All right, let's get into it. Dylan Cease is going to be owned by 60% of the crowd on DK. He's going to be owned by 40% of the crowd on FanDuel. Are you looking to be above or below those marks, or like right at it with the field? And what do you think of Cease here?
I think he's easily the best pitcher on the slate, talent wise. I think I'm just gonna be lazy and match the field on a short slate and hope that I have the right combo and that and what I do have. And probably where I get a little bit different is go slightly above the field in some Yankee stacks to double back hedge, and that way I don't feel as as bad tonight if bad things happen to our favorite team.
Yeah, that's a nice little emotional hedge, a little insurance there. Cease is, I mean, he's easily the best talent on the board for strikeouts. You could argue, the ability to pitch deep into games and stuff like that with Zach Wheeler, but I love Cease. I'm a big fan of his. 34.3% strikeout rate so far this year. Improved on a lot of numbers from his breakout year last year. Like that's a couple percentage points higher. He's got a 2.80 xFIP so far this year to a 3.72 from last year. A 1.0 whip to a 1.25 whip from last year. Swinging strikes are right about the same, 14.6 to 14.8. I just think he's a spectacular pitcher, and he's limiting hard hit so far this year. 25% hard hit rate with a 3.9% barrel versus a 38.5 and a 9.9 last year. So if he's pitching even better than last year, that's just lights out. The strikeouts are there. If he's going to limit contact, this is a Cy Young candidate for sure this year. So I'm all aboard for Dylan Cease. I'll just based on the way I play, based on the fact that I'm going to be masochistic about it and get to shares of that Royals pitcher whose name I've already forgotten. Heasley. I think it was Heasley. I might undercut 40% ownership on the FanDuel slate on Cease. I'll throw some shares toward Wheeler. I'm going to spread out a little bit, but when I say undercut, I'm talking 35% still of him there. And I think maybe if I was playing on the DK slate, if instead of 60, if I'm at 50, I just want to carve out some shares because I do need to find them somewhere to give to some of these other guys like Luis Hill on the other side of this game. If I'm taking shares, if I'm taking more than 3.9% of him, I got to find it somewhere. So some of that will come out of Cease, but absolutely, I'm with you. The interesting thing about it that we stumbled into, I was in the process of saying the Yankees who strike out a lot, and then I hit my my splits board here. The Yanks actually 12th in baseball, 21.4% strikeout rate against righties. You mentioned getting overweight to the field on Yankee stacks. Talk to me about the Yankees offense going up against these here.
Yeah, I mean it's it's the Yankees, man. Their offense can click at any moment. With that said, it's not like the last couple of games they've been putting 10 spots on the board, and guys like Alek Manoah, Yusei Kikuchi in the last couple of weeks have had really usable fantasy days, even on games where Yankees put up some homers. So I think that takes the sting for me out of Cease. Like I don't really see a Cease implosion game, and I don't really see too many simulations of this slate where Cease isn't the highest raw pitching scorer unless it just went all the way bad. But with the Yankees batsman, I'm just kind of betting on talent. I'm loving this balanced lineup. I do think this is a little weaker version now that we have a confirmed lineup. It drops off a cliff once you get to 6 through 9. Hicksy, Gallo, Marwin Gonzalez, and Kyle Higashioka. So a lot of the oomph, the DFS upside is going to be in that 1 through 5 lane, and maybe more so the 2 through 4. But guys like DJ, I mean, those are professional hitters, Rizzo as well, and they're gonna be tough out. So those would be the priority clicks for me in my Yankee stacks. But it's not. I'm not getting to them other than the fact that they're the Yankees and they could go off. I think Cease is just a spectacular option tonight.
Yeah. I mean, look, we knew, we're two guys wearing Yankee logos as we talk about this team. Everybody knows that we're fans of this team, but I do think the DFS case is worth arguing here. And it's primarily based around those premium power bats up at the top of the lineup from Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, and Donaldson. Rizzo, an excellent hit tool, avoids the strikeouts. He's part of that excellence against for strikeouts this season against righties. DJ also excellent for not striking out, 13.4% strikeout rate for DJ this year, 15.7 for Rizzo. Either one of those guys guys can take the ball out of the yard, but more to the point, they're on base for correlated scoring around those other premium power bats. I like Aaron Hicks and I like Joey Gallo, so I'll be including them in my lineups, especially 2,800, 2,900 on FanDuel, low single-digit ownership. Sign me up for that. The guy I don't love in this lineup is Marwin Gonzalez, but I do think that Marwin Gonzalez is interesting, particularly on FanDuel. He's one of two players in this lineup now with 3 position eligibility. Him and DJ both have 3 positions on the FanDuel slate, and Marwin costs the dead minimum. That helps with a lot of correlation and a lot of stacking capabilities from the back end of that Yankees lineup. So for that reason, I'm interested in him. But overall, I thought he was washed a couple years ago. He's shown some signs of life this year. Would you include Marwin just for like value purposes? He's multi-position on DK, first base, shortstop too. That's also interesting. 2,200.
Yeah, I would. I'd be cautious on him and Higgy late in the game. I think IKF and especially Gleyber Torres will pinch hit if the game is close. But yeah, I think a multi-purpose utility guy like Marwin throughout a lineup, a bare bones min, draw a walk, grab a run, and that might serve a purpose on this slate.
Yeah, and being able to move them at 3 positions at 2,000 is just so valuable. Even if you're stacking other teams, if you're building a 4-3 and you're just like, shit, I'm stuck here. I want to get to that bat and this bat and that pitcher. I need a dead minimum price guy. Marwin Gonzalez is your man today. So don't love the bat, but love the price in the DFS situation. What do you think is going on with Higgy? Do you think he's going to come around, or do we just kind of overestimate who this kid might be full time?
I don't know, man. I'm starting to fall more in love with Jose Trevino day by day. So maybe Higgy versus what's the kid they got from Minnesota that got injured?
Rortvedt.
Yeah, Rortvedt. Maybe Higgy versus Rortvedt is the battle to watch. But I just figured Higgy was guaranteed a job as Garrett Cole's caddy, and we're seeing Trevino start to catch Garrett Cole. So I don't know. He definitely needs to wake up though, and I'm willing to give him some time. Catcher sucks, so even if he's just an average catcher, I'll take it in the 9-hole. But yeah, man, he had given us some high hopes with his power last year, and definitely in spring training this year.
Left all his home runs in Florida, but hopefully finds some here. Favorite bat on either side, or a home run call from this game? I like a lot of these guys for some home run potential, obviously.
Yeah. So the 3 highest numbers I'm getting, or the 2 highest numbers I'm getting for homers are on the Yankee side is Aaron Judge and Joey Gallo, your boy. So maybe those 2 put them together. All right. I love me some Judgy, man, but you're gonna have to go up there and get him at that pricing. It's Dylan C's 5.7. That's Coors Field-esque numbers, but he is that good.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, he's also, out of everybody on the team, he's the only guy drawing significant ownership, 20% despite that high price on DK, 13% more manageable at 4,500 on the FanDuel slate. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I have Judgy and Stanton as the top 2 on the Yankees in terms of the home run number, and then Joey right next to them. And Stanton was my home run call for the day just because I felt like going for a homer type pick that not a lot of people are going to. 10% owned on DK, 6% owned on FanDuel. You can sign me up for shares of that against basically anybody. What about from the White Sox side? Who's your favorite bat? And then we'll jump over to this last game, maybe do the Hall of Fame.
Man, I think it's probably going to be Luis Robert. Nice little mix of power and speed. Like I said, a little stolen base potential. Yeah, probably Luis Robert. And if it's not him, then Tim Anderson. I really think that we'll know real quick if Luis Gil has it. If he walks the leadoff guy, if Anderson can take some pitches here, that create a big day for him for DFS. Maybe PrizePicks, our sponsor, will have a soft fantasy point line on Tim Anderson, and we just need a walk and a stolen base to break 6.5 or 7. I don't know what it is. That's
a great call to look out for. Yeah, for the fantasy point totals on those props on PrizePicks. I like that a lot. Let's take a quick look at the Hall of Fame. If Tyler's got it teed up here, it's I think we're in the right time. All right, cool. So, guys, the Awesemo Hall of Fame. You've heard us talk about it all the time. Guys and gals. I don't know why I always default to guys. I'm sure there's some ladies out there watching. Hey, download the Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins, and your qualifying wins are going to be a top 3 in a contest with more than 5,000 entries in it. So you got to finish in the top 3, and you've got to have our logo on your profile. You tweet that to @Awesemo Hall of Fame, @Awesemo HOF, and then send me an email at the support desk so I know that happened. Send a little link to your tweet, and we'll get you set up with a promo code for a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We've got some recent winners. People have just been absolutely destroying it out there. In the Guard has says, at Awesemo, no, this isn't technically Hall of Fame worthy, but no way I take down a CSGO Showdown GPP without your tools. So the Cisco, that's a esports showdown over there. Pretty good little win there. We've got Chris Pirello, won $100 playing the MLB quarter jukebox. So 25 cents turned it into $100. Congratulations out there, Chris. Next one up, Ugly 8 Game, the big winner from last night in the NBA. Nice $100,000 win for our pal Ugly 8 Game. He's in the chat all the time. He's in Discord all the time. So congratulations to him. Says Awesemo projections, tools, and staff are the best in the business, period. Calls out Josh as the best teacher in the industry. His content has taught him how to think and understand DFS. He sent us all a nice tweet as well. So congrats again to him on the 100K win. We have a $500 winner in the MLB Mini Max from the other day, John Wolf, Viking fan 74. First attempt at 150 lineups in the 50-cent Mini Max. Took down first, third, fifth, and eighth place. Not bad. Congrats, John. That's a solid day. Sean's on. Our guy Sean's on behind the scenes, one of the experts behind the scenes creating these projections and tools and content that you guys are out there with. $100,000 winner in MLB in the 7-inning stretch. Congrats to Sean's on. Great guy, killer behind the scenes. And oh, look at that. There's another one. There's a $40,000 winner on the second slide below that. So looks like he took first and second in another. These are different tournaments. He took first for 100K with 173 point score. And then he took first and second with 154 point and 153 point in the 300K mega eights. So 240 grand. That's a pretty solid $250,000 day for our pal Sean. Congrats out there, guys. If you got wins like these, or if you got wins like those $500 ones, if you want to show off that you won $10, send us a tweet. We love seeing it. On nights when my lineups suck, it makes me feel good that we're helping you guys win money. So tweet those out at us, copy us on them. Make sure you hit the @Awesemo HOF tag to qualify for the Hall of Fame here. Gun, let's dive into this last game. We've got a handful of minutes. I think we got like 8 minutes to get through it. Plenty of time. We got the Phillies in LA. Zach Wheeler on the hill for Philadelphia. Tyler Anderson coming back, the southpaw for Los Angeles. What do you like about the pitching in this one? Let's start with Anderson. Is Anderson interesting to you in this matchup?
A little bit. I think obviously on DraftKings, you're going to have to make that uncomfortable click in that SB2 spot. Like I said, you're willing to take 10 plus fantasy points. At least I am. And that's something he's offered at every start so far. And while the Phillies are maybe not a warm and fuzzy team to pick on, they do got some guys that give you problems against lefties, a lot of power. Maybe we can neutralize, Schwarber and Harper with a lefty on the bump, and then you try to navigate through like a Alec Boehm or a Cassie or Romuto, guys like that. It never gets fun or comfortable, but hey, so far so good. A sub-1 whip and enough strikeouts to boot. So I think if you're willing to take a little bit more modest output at your SP2 spot, and I think I am today. Like I said, I think 10 plus. I'm in the conversation. 80 pitches of Anderson just might be enough to get me there. What I don't like with Anderson is the amount of fly balls lately. Those fly balls can maybe survive a little bit more against weaker teams like the Cubs, like the Tigers, guys like that. If we're gonna, dare a Romuto or a Castellanos to put a ball in the air, I am scared. But just don't die. Just don't die in that SP2 spot. So maybe more so than I ever would on a normal slate. I wouldn't get to him on FanDuel tonight, but on DK, I think that SP2 spot is kind of wide open.
I might draw a few shares on FanDuel. I don't like the pitcher that much. I don't really think the 24.2% strikeout rate is real, although he has bumped the swinging strike so far up to 13.4. He was 11.5 and 19.1 overall strikeout rate last year. I think that's more of the pitcher he is. That's who he's been anyway. I didn't get a chance to look for any notable changes. He's 9,200 on FanDuel, which is really uncomfortable, but he's under 5% owned. On the single pitcher site, if it's a game where the Yanks get to Cease for 5, the Dodgers get to Zach Wheeler for 5, and they're just not putting up that extremely much higher score, maybe Anderson gives you enough there. The Phillies are, as you pointed out, they can be neutralized by lefty pitching to a degree. They do have a ton of righty pop at the plate, But what I'm interested in, 28.5% strikeout rate against lefties so far this year. That's 29th out of 30 teams in baseball. Now they're 7th for power with a 170 ISO. They've got a 3.05 home run rate in the split, which is 13th. Creating runs 4% better than average is 15th in baseball. So they've been fine for offensive production, but maybe he extends that strikeout acumen for one more start, and maybe he picks up a few bonus ones just with their swing and miss. I'm probably out on a pretty thin limb there, but I think I will have some. How does he work in the overall for the DK slate in terms of where Zach Wheeler is? Because you're referring to him as an SP2, and I agree, particularly on talent, he's an SP2. At price, 8,900, he's 900 more expensive than Zach Wheeler on the other side of this game. How does that settle in your head, and what are you doing with Zach Wheeler on this slate?
The handicap is the matchup, even though the Phillies ain't no punks. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Wheeler probably somebody I expect to get similar pitch count, 80 plus. Has been out for a couple of weeks. Hasn't pitched since the 4th in the majors off of the Rona. So there's always those unquantifiable. Where's his strength? Where's all that at? I think Wheeler's the better long-term pitcher, but I have not been excited to pitch against the Dodgers at all this year, even if it feels like they haven't been popping off as much as you would expect them to do slate to slate. So I think the handicap is in the matchup, and I have them a little bit closer. I don't really have one more or the other. But I think AK for Zach Wheeler, you mentioned earlier how we were altering, the top percentage with the value percentage. I don't think Wheeler's an AK pitcher, so maybe there's some value in that, and then maybe a bad to average game for him against this hard of a lineup. It could just still be 16 fantasy points, and that dog just might hunt on a slate like this. So I think AK for Wheeler versus 8-9 on Anderson. I don't know, man. I might have equal shares of both, but the heart wants a little bit more Wheeler just because I think Wheeler's the better pitcher.
Yeah, totally agree with you. The Wheeler's definitely the better pitcher. I was a little concerned, and I remain a little concerned until we see better from him, that he was out of the gate a little bit slow in terms of the strikeouts. 22.5% strikeout rate so far this year versus 29.1 over 213 and a third last season. He was excellent last year. Any concerns about the lingering strikeout rate? And then just in relation to the field, pushing around 50% ownership on Wheeler, you're going to be above or below that? Or just right with the field? Yeah,
I haven't made that decision yet because we have a little later lock on DK. The swing and strike rate and the strikeout rate is definitely concerning. I will say in that last game, he had his best swing and miss stuff of the year. Actually hit a 20% swing and strike rate, and then the game prior 11%. Everything before that was very, 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 very bad. So I don't know, man. I hate that he had this Rona stint in between then when it looked like he was finally coming to. So yeah, that's still in the back of my mind. But I also just want to give more credence to the years of sample size that we have past the first 3 games of a shortened spring training season. So I'm concerned. I'm more concerned that it's the Dodgers than anything.
That's the bigger, like right now tonight concern, I think, is definitely that lineup on the other side going up against all that ownership. Are you looking to grab some Dodgers bats here? I wrote about them on the site. I think they're a great leverage play, even with some popularity around Freeman and Turner. The other guys in that lineup are all spectacular and pretty under-owned. Talk to me real quick about both of these lineups. You can just take the mic.
Yeah, I just don't think you should ever on a short slate like this, we should never really have an opportunity to have leverage on the Dodgers on a 3-game slate. So if the field's going to allow us to do that, I'm going to do that. So yeah, absolutely loading up on some Dodgers stacks.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the top end, the super popular guys, but then you get to like a Max Muncy at 18%, and then it drops all the way off the table. Justin Turner, if he's in the lineup, 2%, Cody Bellinger, 2%, Chris Taylor, 1%, Gavin Lux, 2%. I can get to any of those bats. Those are top end bats on a lot of other teams. They just happen to hit at the back of the order. On the Philly side of things, we mentioned, potential to cut into the lefty on lefty pop, but I still do get a nice home run mark on Kyle Schwarber. Harper doesn't get too impacted around that. And then which of these righty bats are you looking to lean into? You mentioned a couple of them, but just to focus on it real quick before we end the show.
Yeah, Castellanos has my highest home run mark of the Phillies here, so I'd probably be looking for him to stay hot, and then maybe Real Muto gets a decent spot. I'm curious to see if they lead off with Schwarber against the lefty. Still, we've seen them do that. We've also seen them not, and in years past, we've seen a Real Muto lead off. So I don't know if that's in the cards here. Maybe even Alec Bohm. So Cassie's my favorite righty though.
With you on that. Before we jump, I'll knock out the last quick little plug here, but who's the bomb detector like for your home run call today?
It likes the chat to get 100 likes, first of all. Secondly,
we got it.
Actually, I just slept at Reese Hoskins as my highest home run rating. So I guess I like him a little bit more than Castellanos now. And then I've got Salvador Perez 2, Judgy 3, and then Joey Gallo 4 of guys with sample size.
Okay, love it. Stanton was mine. It's in my article, as are my game-by-game home run picks, and like a couple thousand words too much about this entire slate. Guys, stick around. Hit the like, hit the subscribe for us. Helps us out a lot. We appreciate everybody hanging out. Stick around 5 p.m. We've got NBA Deeper Dive coming up with Lofty and Adam. After that, 6:03, taking you a half-hour past lock to 7:30. Eric and Greg with the NBA Live Before Lock show. Stick around. We really appreciate you guys.